Welcome to the Grief City podcast. I'm your host, Nuella, and this is another episode of Griefy Tips because a little support can go a long way.
Welcome to Grief City.
Here is today's Griefy Tip. Loving yourself after loss means welcoming who you're becoming, even when you feel changed. I wrote this and I mean this, but it also just feels like so much to unpack. It feels so complex to unpack in a small griefy tip, like mini episode. I think it's so hard after you lose someone, especially someone that was a part of making up who you were, like a parent or like a spouse. When you lose someone, it feels like you lose yourself. And it's so hard to experience that. I can only speak from losing a parent, but losing a parent, like your parent is part of your identity, part of who raised you. Like so much of who you are is because of that parent. And after losing my father, it felt like my identity and my sense of safety was just like shaken. And I could see how parts of me were changing, and it's kind of terrifying. And I was, in my 20s, and I think in your 20s and even in your 30s, you're still, I mean, let's be honest, it's all of your life. You're still discovering who you are. I don't think that ever really stops. But in your 20s, there's a lot of that going on, like heavily. And losing my dad in that time of my life when I was already kind of a bit insecure, trying to find some footing and grounding. And then I lost him, and it just felt like everything that I thought I knew about myself was like, oh my gosh, that's gone. Or like that part of me, I can't ever get that back, kind of thing. Now, I do believe loss changes you. Do I believe that it completely changes everything about you? I think it can, but sometimes I think we, hold on to this narrative so much that everything changes about who we are, but I've still found that there are parts of myself before my dad died that are still there. Maybe they're a little impacted by the trauma, but they're still there, and as I've found more healing, I find some characteristics come back, or maybe they come back stronger because now there's, a purpose behind them. Like, I just wanna honor my dad with my life. So I think we change for sure, but are we, like, a completely different person with completely different characteristics and personality type? Not necessarily. But as I was experiencing these changes, I was feeling so afraid. I felt like I was pushing back on it so much. I hated it. I hated that I was like this person that just was crying all the time. I hated that I was now looking at so many things in life through the lens of like bad things happen to me and all that stuff. And I was just finding and I've dealt with a lot of guilt, so I was already having a lot of self-loathing issues to begin with. But I was, struggling so hard to accept, the new parts of me and the evolving of me. But I think loving yourself after loss is allowing your heart to welcome in those new parts. I felt like I began experiencing more peace and healing when I started to welcome those parts of who I was becoming. And I also feel like the things that I thought maybe were gone for good started making their way back into my life, and I started experiencing those character traits again. I know sometimes people get a little upset at, like, that phrase of, well, they would want you to live your best life, or they would want you to be happy. And I understand because it's like they're gone, and obviously, like, yes, I know that, but they're gone. And now I have to deal with picking up the pieces kind of thing. But at the same time, it's also true. I think it's really important to try to start loving ourselves and to try to heal our hearts in that way and realize, like, yeah, I'm not the exact same person I was before loss. That's okay, but there's also really beautiful aspects of who I am coming out as I grow and I evolve and I heal. Like, I am a much more tender person now. And maybe some people think it's like, "Oh, she's so sensitive." But at the same time, I'm like, "No, I'm, like, very in touch with my emotions and very, in touch with the emotions around me." And I think it's a beautiful thing because I wanna be aware of that stuff. I wanna be more present. I wanna be more, like, compassionate. I wanna feel things deeper because, like, what's the point of all of this unless I, like, experience life? So I know, um, it's really scary to feel like who you are is changing or who you were is completely gone or some of some of the fears that come up that start to impact who you are now or just your life after loss, but there's also really beautiful things happening in the becoming of who you are. And I think it's important that we try to love ourselves enough to start accepting that because I think a lot of healing happens there.
Please watch your step.